2023 Green Bay Packers preview. Turn the page, man. Here we go. Aaron Rodgers era is over. The Jordan Love era is here. So what is this all going to mean? Is this a team with all those pieces and all that talent on defense that can compete this year? Does Jordan Love hit the ground running? They've got a lot of youth on offense. There are just so many question marks. If it all comes together, I think that they can be a relevant team in this division and maybe in the NFC in general. But there are just so many things that we have no idea what it's going to look like because we've seen Jordan Love play a drive, a game and a half.
Like
I mean,
3 drives total.
There's just so little to go off of. And so there are just a ton of question marks. It's a fascinating kind of step for the franchise because when I was there just talking to people about this, there was an old Ted Thompson adage that you never cut off opportunities for young players. And if you look at the way the Packers built their team for a very long time, they lived that. They didn't sign outside free agents. So the guys that they drafted just got a chance to play. Corey Linsley was a 5th-round pick, and he was their starting center when he was a rookie. Think about the 4th-round picks on the offensive line that got opportunities for them. That's how you find the Josh Sittons and the TJ Langs. They really gave those guys. Bakhtiari is the same deal. They gave those guys. He was a rookie when he started. They gave those guys shots, and they lived with the ups and downs because in their mind, it was the best way to build a roster for long-term stability. Yeah. And they went away from that for a little bit. And I think it's because they had this quarterback and they knew was near the end. He had guys he wanted to bring back. He had a hand in some of the decisions that they made, and he had a say in some of them. And so I think they drifted from that. Now they are firmly back to it, where the guys that they drafted and the guys that they're invested in, they're going to be able to sink or swim, and you're going to have to live with the results because in the end, in the long term, this is the way to get the most out of this roster. So I think in some ways, this kind of feels like a return to classic Green Bay Packers thinking for good or for ill.
Yeah, it's the story of this Packers season is going to be the young players, which I think is very fitting for everything you just laid out. And the vibes do seem good. Like it's kind of interesting that the Packers and Aaron Rodgers in his own way both had kind of a summer of love. Yeah. Like they you know what I mean? Like they kind of, it felt like a good breakup. It really did. But it's an interesting team. I really like a lot of the young players anyways, but it's very Packersy that they're going through this path. It just feels like even the quarterback situation that they're playing a guy that was on the bench for a few years. The Packers have done this before with Aaron Rodgers. Like it just feels very familiar, even if it's even kind of in 2023, it's so unfamiliar, which maybe just folk have been very aware of the Packers my entire life. And it's just kind of interesting to watch this team kind of just do it all over again. And you can see the benefits. We'll talk about their offense and what the strength of their offense is. There's benefits to doing it this way. Like you laid out all those offensive linemen. It's just, there's benefits to having these young guys and letting them develop and get reps. And who are the teams that we usually talk about with like rookies doing this way? Packers and the Steelers, right? And maybe like a little bit the Ravens, but Packers and Steelers, and they've been very successful for a very long time. That's why they're two of the franchises that are talked about like that.
I guess I don't really have to ask you what the biggest question you have about the offense is, but what is the biggest question you have about the Packers offense in 2023?
Which run concept? No, I'm kidding. No, the passing game and Jordan Love. I mean, just that's the questions and hoping to get some answers. And I really, the answers I've seen so far have been promising, and I'll talk about it in a sec. But before I get into the passing game, is the run game is proven. And it's proven with players that are still there. The O-line is proven with depth. Matt LaFleur, to me, is shown that he's a good play caller that can adapt to his personnel. And really, I mean, he's the guy that gave Derrick Henry kind of hey, let's use freaking Derrick Henry when he was in Tennessee. Like sometimes that's what coaching is, but also just the Packers offense. We talked about the Grace hits kind of concepts of merging with him and Aaron Rodgers and what he liked to do. It's the whole kind of Johnny Cash, Rick Rubin thing, like kind of, like if it's Recover Hurt by Nine Inch Nails kind of thing. I did not have that written down. It just kind of came to my head, but honestly, the offensive line is a strength. This is a top 5 run unit with no quarterback run game to speak of the last couple of years. It's a true blue, really good run game, but this passing attack is just obviously so unproven. There's concepts that they can lean into, whatever, but you have to see it's all about Jordan Love. It's all about these young pass catchers. What steps they show. There are glimpses from Christian Watson last year and some other pieces that they have, but the other guys are rookies. And then you have Jordan Love, like you referred to, has played like 70 plays in his NFL career, like his whole career. So That is it. That is the big question. Let's see what the answers are.
What's interesting though is that this Jordan Love is not in his first year within this offense. He's in year 4 now, and he knows this offense, and he's actually the veteran in the skill position rooms.
Funny, right?
He has so much more experience within this system than any of the receivers do, and he's never been the starting quarterback. It's just crazy. And so that dynamic is so interesting, but he's been able to, and I talked about this with him when I was there. There's so many things within this offense where they're actually asking receivers to read things post snap. And so that's been something that he's tried to walk through with them where, okay, if they're giving you this look, this is how you need to take this. So he's actually, despite never having played, been able to help the younger guys along in terms of what they need to do within the passing game, which is just a fascinating dynamic. I can't remember a team doing this to this degree where there is truly no veteran presence in either one of those rooms, in the tight end room and in the wide receiver.
There's
not even like a token guy.
No.
And what they did is they looked at all the options, and the thought was, we can go get one of those mid-tier Jacoby Myers type receivers and pay him $11 million. But what does that do for us? Like, does that actually move the needle at all, or is this worth it?
Yeah.
On both the tight ends and the receivers. And that's what they landed on. And we'll see. There will be growing pains. There will be a lot of them, but do the benefits outweigh that in the end?
I think it does. I assume it does, but that's also just go Stu. That's it's just give young players reps. Their rating goes up. That's how it works in Madden, right? That's how it works in real life too. But yeah, it's progression's not linear. We always say this. Having said that, though, it's a fun group. Christian Watson, who I was lower on coming out, I'll admit that, but he is explosive. The underlying metrics are very positive, even if he was kind of very designery last year. Like, they were really like, hey, you run these 5 routes and I bet you get the ball all 5 times kind of stuff. But the underlying metrics are very good with him. Romeo Doubs had flashes, just some inconsistency with his hands, but there's been a little bit more nuance with him that's been promising. And then they drafted Jaden Reed, who I'm a fan of. Dane Brugler is a fan of. Very useful player. That's what he seems like for me. And he's already looked like that in the preseason, which is cool. I can I gush about tight ends? Can I get into my Luke Musgrave?
You certainly can.
Yeah, he looks like a star. But I don't know. There's a tight end. It's a rookie tight end. But that was going into the draft I was very high on him because I think my line on him was he moves different. And looking at him in the NFL, that's what he looks like.
He moves different.
He moves different.
Even if he moves different as a receiver, though, the amount that they are going to have to put on him as their number one tight end in 11 personnel, his head is already spinning, and not in a bad way, just in a way that you would expect. This is one of those things when you go visit with the team, you realize what they're thinking about and what you're not. Tyler Davis was going to be the 3rd tight end on this team. When they lost Tyler Davis for the season to injury, there's like a real reaction in the building of like, shit, we lost Tyler Davis. And it's because he was going to be able to fill some of those role specific things.
Yeah.
They didn't want to ask the young tight ends to do. It was just taking one thing off of their plate. So now with him gone, everything is on Luke Musgrave's plate. And there's just no way as a tight end to handle all of those things well immediately as a rookie. So even if the ceiling is extremely high, and even if a lot of people are justifiably excited about his pass catching role this year, it is going to be uneven at times this season. It's important to know that.
Every rookie tight end, it's I don't know. It's so hard unless you're like Kyle Pitts got 1,000 yards because they narrowed his roll down. Hey,
he's a receiver.
He's a receiver. Yeah, just split out wide, and we're designing plays for you. Like Musgrave, and you can tell they love him. Like LaFleur just won't shut up about him. But he's in every snap. And this is a guy that really hasn't finished an entire college season. He played 2 games last year. Like, he hasn't gone through a 10-game season, not much less 17-game NFL season. So just physically, it's exhausting. But then, like you said, mentally, it's a lot to ask these tight ends. It's really cool what he's been doing. They designed jet sweep for him. What's really been promising is in line. He looks like a good blocker. Like, he's already better than what he showed in college. It's like, oh yeah. But again, rookie tight end. And then the number 2 tight end is a rookie. So you got
who's even raw.
Even
comes from South Dakota State.
South Dakota State. Very bullish on him, but that's like
whatever you get from him. It's a project. It is a long-term
project. Yeah.
So there's a lot,
but that is I know that's way down the road, but yeah. So you have a rookie slot, a rookie top 2 tight ends, a secondary receiver, and a secondary receiver, and a first-year starting quarterback or first-time starting quarterback. That's the skill positions right now. Good running backs, though.
A lot more juice than they've had in previous years. And I think that will express itself within the offense. And remember, I was asking about, well, what will be different with Jordan there? It's like, well, Jordan's not the only thing that's different. I think that's important to understand that everyone's going to put the offense from last year in one bucket and the offense from this year in another. And they're going to describe that difference just because of the quarterback. But that's not the case. They have more speed. I think that they will utilize that speed in kind of new, interesting ways. But the quarterback changes is the most important thing. So the last thing I wanted to ask you was, what do you think the offense will do differently with Jordan Love? What things will they lean on maybe that they didn't with Aaron Rodgers in a Matt LaFleur offense?
I think they'll sprinkle in some run game with him because I think he is a good athlete for his size. I think really I would make the joke about Rodgers having the performative deep balls, but I think Love is going to be really willing to push the ball maybe more than Rodgers would pick and choose his spots. I think Love will have more volume on those kind of maybe intermediate and deep throws, especially over the middle. I think Love is better.
We've already seen it. We've already seen it in the preseason.
Right away.
He's taken every shot one-on-one outside the numbers. Every time they've been single high outside the numbers, he's taken his one-on-ones. And then he has not been afraid to rip those intermediate play action shots over the middle.
He tried a no-look overthrow already. He's feeling it. He's feeling it. Like he gave a fade signal to Christian Watson already, like in the preseason. I was going gaga over Rodgers and Garrett Wilson doing that. Love and Christian Watson were doing it too in the preseason. That's promising that he's comfortable that they give him license to do that. That's not usually that's a quarterback. We have to, it's like your license to kill, kind of like, okay, we're going to give this to you, but like they gave it to him already, which I mean, obviously he's a veteran already, but he hasn't started. So I think it's just more verticalness, more aggressiveness. Really, I think Love can do a lot. I'm pretty optimistic about him. I'll talk more about it.
I am too. I am too.
I'm telling you, and I've referred to this like 20 times, but went to that one practice and how they talked about him and how he looked. I was like, oh, like that. I think they were surprised that he improved so much. They're like, oh, this is working. I'm pretty optimistic about what he'll do this year and with this offense. This offense will have some growing pains, obviously, but they got a good line and they got a good run game. And sorry, last point I'll make is because the line I think is so good and so deep, that I think benefits the young quarterback so much, or the inexperienced quarterback, is now he can actually go through progressions and do his job as opposed to going like, I know my right side's caving in. I gotta get rid of this ball in 2 seconds. So actually be able to do what he wants to do is going to be huge for him. So again, that's why I'm a little bit optimistic about them.
One question about the offensive line is I think how the tackles all shake out. So Zach Tom is nominally the starting right tackle for this team. Little undersized, but he's shown very well. There's a reason that he's gotten that spot.
They might try him at center. That's why.
So I think they like Josh Myers more than people from outside the building think they like Josh Myers. So I think Tom will be their starting right tackle if he's a starter on the line. And
Myers just has the mistakes. I think that's what frustrates him. I think ability-wise, he's fine. It's just that he'll have the bad snap or he misses something. And I think that's where maybe some of their negativity comes through.
My question is, what happens with Nyman if Zach Tom ends up being the starter? I have to imagine they'll hang on to him just because Bakhtiari's health is such a question that you rather protect yourself. Even if you're paying $4 million to a swing tackle, it's almost more valuable than a 5th round pick would be or whatever a team would trade for him, because Bakhtiari, he's practicing once a week. It's just, he's at that stage of his career where it's just hard to rely on him staying healthy.
He might not even play on turf games. Like he's like very adamant about it. So I think having a swing, I mean, O-line health is what we talk about all the time, is such a key to success. So you don't give away depth at O-line. I just am a big believer that you keep as many assets as you can.
Biggest question about the Packers defense this season. What do you got for me?
Can they actually do their part? There's a lot of pedigree and some talent on this defense. A lot of ones next to these names. A lot of first round picks littered throughout this defense. Can they actually be something? Can they stop the run? Can they actually slow offenses down? Can they create pressure? Can they just be an aggressive unit that kind of really dictates games? I think maybe is the moral of my story. I like a lot of their players. There's some really Jair Alexander is obviously awesome, but there's other pieces on this defense. But how does it all come together? Can they become the sum of their parts as opposed to all these maybe high draft picks that they've had in the past?
That's the question. That missing element, that essence that they just have not had over the last couple of years, can they get that back? Yeah. They're 29th in early down run defense success rate last year. Okay. They played man coverage on 20.6% of their third downs, which was 28th in the league. It was just a passive defense. It has been a passive defense. And can you get some of that ass kicking mentality somewhere along the way? Can that creep into the structure of how you play? Is it a personality of a player? Rashawn Gary is that for them. And I think they really missed him last year after he got hurt. Not just because he was the most disruptive pass rusher on their team and one of the most disruptive pass rushers in the league. He's going to get a contract that's in the same range as like Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and all those guys this offseason. And people are going to be like, holy shit. But that's going to happen.
Watch him.
That is going to happen. And beyond what he does as a pass rusher, I think his physicality really brings something to this defense. Mm-hmm. He came back to start practicing, I think the day before I got there. And somebody told me that the young pass rushers and just the young pieces on defense in general, when they watched him practice, it was one of those like, oh my God, type of moments. And I think that he really does mean something to that team, not even just in terms of the actual impact that he has on the field, but just even more than that. Like there's a kind of intangible quality to what he brings to them. And I think that him being back healthy this season, you'll maybe see a little bit more of that. But I also think the youth across the defense, all of these young players, adding Lucas Van Ness as a first round pick, some of the youth that they have at some of these other spots, I think that there's like a hunger there across the roster that maybe there hasn't been over the last couple of years as they've been a little bit older in some of these positions. And I think that they're hoping that manifests in the way that this unit plays.
Yeah, I think also sometimes when you're a team that maybe the star is the quarterback in the offense and you're just always feel like the punching bag, like because even like local media, I know it's Green Bay, but still, but media just kind of getting on you or public getting on you and going like, well, do your part. Well, Aaron just threw for 4 touchdowns and you guys lost the game. Like, and that can really add up. Like that can add up. That can make you just lose confidence as a unit. So, but hold on real quick with the Rashawn Gary stuff. You're talking about why he might get paid. He's like second pressure rate, only behind Micah Parsons since 2020. And he was second last year. Like if you do enough qualifying snaps for him, he's awesome. He came back from injury.
He's a really good player.
Came back from an ACL in 10 months and he's practicing like full go like that. Bakhtiari has been like 2.5 years. He's still setting out practices. Like, I mean, that's a really significant thing, but really just this, how I kind of put this defense was how they figure out to be weaponized. Like what is how do they impose their will on the offense? You talk about them being passive. That shows up in the run game. That shows how offenses can matriculate down the field on them on a passing game. I got to stop using that phrase, but getting down the field on them in the run game or in the pass game. But they need guys to like just be disruptive. So can they get something out of Devontae Wyatt, who's their first round pick last year?
I think the answer to that is yes. So I have, we'll talk about him in a second, but I think the answer to that is yes. They need something more out of him. They need something more out of the linebackers. I think that they'll just be less passive this year. I think this is another one of those teams with an offensive minded head coach who's just getting tired of punched in the face.
Sure.
So I think you'll see more man coverage on third down. I think you'll see more blitzing on third down. I think you'll just see them forcing the issue more this season than they were willing to over the last couple of years because they're just tired of getting beat up in those exact situations because they have the players. It's just a mindset thing and it's just everything coming together. And that's easier said than done. But I do think that they have the talent on that side of the ball that if it all clicks, then they can be really, really good in every single facet.
And there's already indicators is that they're running more man coverage in preseason. Like there's an uptick in that. So it's funny you say that because they're already showing it. You can say all you want in preseason. And
that's how you got to weaponize. If you got Jair Alexander, fucking weaponize that guy.
Man coverage.
Like let's weaponize these pieces. And there are some questions personnel wise. They're worth mentioning. Okay.
Back end.
Keyshawn Nixon is starting at their nickel. He's never been a real defensive player. He's been a kick returner. He's a starting nickel right now. And then it's safety. You got Darnell Savage, who's had it's been an adventure the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And he got benched at one point last year. And this is a team that needed safeties. And then now you have Rudy Ford and Jonathan Owens kind of fighting for that other spot. So that second safety spot and really both safety spots worth mentioning. But other than that, This is a team that has a lot of talent in the front seven and at every other spot. Eric Stokes is on pup, but this is a guy who showed real flashes as a rookie. So if he comes back at corner, you slide Rasul Douglas inside potentially again. What does that group look like? There are timelines where this is a very good defense, but now you got to see it. And they did not replace Joe Barry this offseason. And I think that the hope is with a couple tweaks here and there, it doesn't feel like the same sort of unit it has over the last couple of years.
And Amos was such a steadying force for them on the back end, but put so much on their safeties. That's the thing with Savage. He's a good athlete, but he's kind of not quick to use it. The game's a little fast for him, always on the back end. He got much better way late in the season when they used him as the nickel, as the slot. And so that was interesting, but then they're not kind of leaning into that as much because of what you said with all the depth stuff. So that is something they have to answer, especially how this defense wants to use or how to work. So if they do man coverage though, he might be the man coverage guy on the tight end. Actually, I don't hate that. So now we should kind of putting that together.
X factor for the Green Bay Packers. Not even sure we got to say it.
Yeah, Jordan Love. That's it.
It is the starting quarterback that is replacing Aaron Rodgers that we've never really seen play before.
Yeah. They haven't had a question at quarterback since basically I've been born.
Yeah.
Since I was 3.
Yes, since I've been born.
4.
So let keep telling me. The Packers traded for Brett Favre when I was 3.5 years old.
Okay. Yes.
I turned 36 on Saturday.
It's just been straight. And it's like, Brett Favre missed a lot of games. So, you got, I know. Justice Mosqueda is already taking victory laps.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
I know. And offensive line depth too, which is also the funny thing too. They've always had answers there. It's just always, they're always just a funhouse mirror version of the Bears.
Breakout candidate for the Packers. What do you got?
I actually stuck with Jordan Love here. The double. I haven't done a double yet, but I'm double dipping here. I'm high on him, guys. I'm not saying superstar or anything like that. He's showing some really improved footwork from college. Obviously, it's been a few years since he's been at Utah State, but man, he's got some real zip on the arm. He is anticipating. He's reading the game. I know it's preseason, but even what he's shown, the flashes against the Eagles last year in the couple series he got there, I don't know. I think the arrow is really pointing up for him like that. I think this thing might go okay at the very least. There's some real deal stuff with him. He's got some real juice in his arm, and as an athlete, I think he's going to break out and be okay.
2 young first-round pick quarterbacks that I think are going to be better than people probably would have expected when we were talking about them this spring. Jordan Love is one of them. Kenny Pickett is the other. I think that those offenses have a chance, because the question with those offenses is, what are we getting from the quarterback? If the quarterback ends up being pretty good, the other pieces are in place for those units to be, and I obviously have much more faith in Matt LaFleur as a play caller than I do in Matt Canada. But personnel-wise, that's the main question, is the quarterback. And I think both of those teams, if their quarterback can hit the ground running, those offenses could be much better than we anticipate. And I think that's the case for the Steelers, and I think it's the case for the Packers.
Absolutely. It's funny that we mentioned them before as the franchises and everything, and look where they're at.
Exactly.
God.
I got Devontae Wyatt. Second year, I think he's just really, based on what I heard when I was up there, really kind of settled into how to be a pro. I think they just expect a lot more from him this year as a first-round pick, and that's helpful because they haven't had much help for Kenny Clark in recent years. And if Devontae Wyatt can be one of those guys, they just have more youth and more depth at those pass rusher spots with him and Van Ness and all the other pieces that they have. I think that the front seven has a chance to be pretty good.
I like that.
What is success for the 2023 Packers?
Is Jordan Love the guy, or the young pieces are new kind of building blocks? And do we feel happy with what we've seen? That's really it. Again,
I don't even think you need to put a win total on it. I don't think you need to put an end game on it.
Nope.
I literally said confirmation Jordan Love is a dude, progress from the young pieces. Done.
That's it.